Black hotel maid answered a call in Dutch in front of a millionaire. Then he asked to see her. "Excuse me, miss," a voice said sharply behind her. "Did you just speak Dutch?" Amara froze, her gloved hand still hovering over the hotel room's phone receiver. The faint hum of jazz music drifted through the open hallway of the Regency Manhattan Hotel, a place where diamonds glittered on wrists and smiles were always rehearsed. The man standing in the doorway wasn't just any guest. Lucas Van Doren, billionaire investor and CEO of Vander Industries, towered with an effortless kind of presence. Tall, silver hair brushed back, tailored navy suit sharp enough to slice through glass. Moments ago, Amara had answered a routine housekeeping call, but when the caller switched languages, she instinctively replied, in perfect Dutch. Now, the billionaire's piercing blue eyes were fixed on her like a hawk spotting something rare. I'm sorry, sir, Amara stammered. It was just a wrong number. Lucas tilted his head. A wrong number that asked for Agent Arendt? His lips curved into something between curiosity and disbelief, and you answered in fluent Dutch. That's not exactly standard training for a maid, is it? Amara's heartbeat pounded in her ear. She stepped back, clutching the cleaning cart handle like a shield. I don't know what you're talking about. But Lucas didn't move. His gaze softened just slightly, the way a man looks when he's seen something familiar in a stranger. Where did you learn Dutch? He asked, quieter this time. Amara's eyes darted to the floor. My grandmother was from Suriname. She taught me a few words, she lied. The billionaire nodded slowly, as if playing along, though his eyes betrayed something else. Interest, suspicion, recognition. He slipped his hands into his pocket. Interesting. You sound more like someone who studied at Leiden or Utrecht, not someone who cleans penthouse suite. That stung. She could feel heat rise behind her eyes, but held it back. Years of swallowing pride had trained her face into stillness. If you'll excuse me, Mr. Van Doren, I still have rooms to clean. She turned to leave, but Lucas said something that made her stop in her track. Amara Jansen. Her name, her real name. The mop handle slid from her fingers and clattered to the marble floor. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The only sound was the distant murmur of a jazz saxophone from the hotel bar downstairs. Who are you? She whispered. Lucas's expression remained unreadable. That's what I was going to ask you. 3 floors down, the hotel lobby shimmered like a jewelry box. Marble floors, gold-plated elevators, and chandeliers that looked like constellation. Amara stood near the staff corridor, trying to steady herself. She'd spent 5 years building this quiet, invisible life, cleaning suites, keeping her head down, and never, ever letting her accent slip. How could he have known her name? Only one organization ever called her that, and she thought they'd erased every trace of her past when she disappeared. Agent Arendt. The name still echoed in her mind. Meanwhile, upstairs, Lucas Van Doren stood by the massive window of his penthouse suite, city lights flickering against the glass. He dialed a number on his phone. Find everything you can about the maid named Amara, he ordered. Room service level 6. I want to know where she worked before here. He hung up and turned toward the bed, where an open laptop displayed the blueprints of a Dutch aerospace project, the one that went missing 5 years ago. And beneath the headline, a photo from a security archive. Agent Arendt, the operative who vanished mid-mission after exposing corporate espionage across Europe. The resemblance was uncanny. Later that night, Amara walked down the service corridor with her cart. When a shadow moved behind her, she spun, her pulse racing, only to find Lucas standing there again. Don't sneak up on people like that, she said coldly. He smiled faintly. You're not exactly easy to approach, Miss Jansen. Her breath hitched. I told you. He stepped closer. Drop the act. You were a linguistics operative, weren't you? European Intelligence, 2018. Amara felt her hands tremble. You have no proof. Lucas reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a folded paper, a printout from an intelligence database. Her old ID photo stared back at her. Tell me why someone like you is scrubbing champagne stains off floors, he said softly. And don't lie, not again. She looked at him for a long time, her jaw tight. Then finally she whispered, because I got tired of watching men like you destroy everything decent in the name of business. That silenced him. Amara pushed her cart past him, but Lucas blocked her path again, his voice low and urgent now. You were framed, weren't you? That project, the Aerolink files, they blamed you for leaking them. She froze. How do you know about Aerolink? Because the people who set you up, Lucas said, once tried to buy me too. Their eyes met, hers filled with disbelief, his with something like guilt. For the first time that night, Amara saw not a billionaire, but a man haunted by his own compromises. The next morning, whispers spread among the hotel staff. The maid from room service had been seen walking with a the billionaire guest, and rumors twisted like wildfire. Inside the linen room, Amara sat on a crate, head in her hand. Her phone buzzed. A message from an encrypted number. "We know where you are. Stay quiet, or the world learns who you are." Her stomach dropped. She deleted the text and turned off the phone, but her hands were shaking. Lucas's voice echoed in her head. "You were framed, weren't you?" If he was telling the truth about knowing the same people who ruined her life, maybe he could help, or maybe he was just another player trying to trap her again. Either way, she needed to find out. At sunset, as the city skyline turned gold, Lucas sent a message to the front desk. "Dinner. Rooftop at 8. I promise no tricks, just answers." Amara almost ignored it, but curiosity and desperation won. She arrived that evening dressed in her staff uniform, the same faded gray she'd worn for years. Lucas was waiting near the glass balcony, a table set with wine and candles flickering against the city glow. "You didn't have to come," he said quietly as she approached. "Then why did you ask?" He smiled faintly. "Because sometimes the truth only comes out when two people stop pretending." Amara folded her arms. "Start talking." Lucas sighed. 5 years ago, you intercepted data about a weapons merger, Dutch Aerospace and Vander Industry. You went dark. They called you a traitor, but you were the only one who refused to sell the code." Her eyes widened. "You're lying." "I wish I was," he said, "but I was there. I was one of the board members who voted to bury your file." The world around her seemed to tilt. The man who now spoke softly under the moonlight was part of a machine that had destroyed her. She stepped back, fury trembling in her hand. "You ruined me. I saved you," he countered. "They wanted you dead. I leaked a fake trail, made it look like you fled. It's why you're still breathing." Amara's mind spun. "You expect me to thank you for that?" "No," Lucas said, his voice dropping lower, "but I do expect you to listen, because the people who silenced you back then, they're moving again." And then, from the shadows of the rooftop doorway, a voice called out, low, accented, cold. "He's right, Agent Arendt, and you're already too late." Amara's eyes snapped toward the sound. 3 men in black suits stepped out, guns raised, and before she could move, the rooftop lights cut out. The city went dark. "Sit down, Amara." The words hit her like a command. The private dining suite of the hotel, usually reserved for heads of state and global billionaires, was empty except for 2 people, Amara Daniels, wearing her crisp Maid uniform and trembling hands hidden behind her back, and Julian Cross, the reclusive billionaire who owned the entire Crossline hotel chain. He stood by the tall window, the skyline of Manhattan burning gold behind him. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the city as if trying to find answers in the reflection of glass and steel. I didn't mean to disturb you, sir," Amara said quietly. Julian turned. His gaze was sharp, intelligent, but layered with something new, recognition. "When you answered that call," he said slowly, "you spoke Dutch like a native, not just fluent, natural, not learned." Amara's heart thudded. "I just picked up a few things working with guests," she lied. He smiled faintly. "Really? Because I know Dutch. My mother was born in The Hague. The dialect you used wasn't from tourists. It was Holland-Zuid private academy Dutch, not something you pick up cleaning hotel rooms." Silence filled the room like smoke. Julian crossed his arm. "Who are you, really?" Amara looked down. "A maid," she whispered. Julian shook his head. "No, you're not. You moved through the executive wing without glancing at the cameras. You knew where the staff blind spots. And when I saw you in the lobby last week, your posture, your eyes, everything screamed training. Military? Diplomatic?" Amara's throat went dry. The truth clawed at her chest, but she swallowed it down. "Please, Mr. Cross, I can't." "You will," he said, stepping closer. "Because I'm not angry, Amara. I'm curious. And I think you've been hiding for a long time." The words hit too close. She exhaled shakily. "If I tell you who I was, you'll wish you never asked." Julian's tone softened. "Try me." She hesitated, and then it spilled out. "My name isn't Amara Daniel. It's Amara Van Rijn. My father was Hendrik Van Rijn, founder of Rintech System, the Dutch cybersecurity company that Crossline once tried to buy out." Julian froze. "That's impossible." "Hendrik Van Rijn died with his daughter in a plane crash 6 years ago." Amara's lips trembled. "They said that, yes, but I wasn't on the plane. My mother was. I survived, hidden by people who knew my father's enemies were still looking for me." Julian's mind reeled. "Your father's company was investigating data breaches in U.S. defense networks before the crash, and those breaches led back to Crossline Systems," Amara whispered. Julian stiffened. "Were you implying that my father was killed because he found out your company wasn't just protecting data?" she said, her voice breaking. "It was selling it." Julian stepped back as though struck. "That's a dangerous accusation." "And true," she said. "I worked here under a false identity to find proof. The night manager her. Mr. Lawton, help me. That's who called me in Dutch. He said the files are ready. Julian stared at her, his face unreadable. So that's why you were in this hotel. Not because you needed work, because you were infiltrating it. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted justice for my family. For a long time, he said nothing. The hum of the city seemed to fade. Then, slowly, Julian walked to the bar counter and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to her. I built Crossline from the ground up, he said, voice low. But I inherited some things I didn't understand. My father had partnered. Old money. Dark connection. If what you're saying is true, he trailed off, eyes clouded. It means they used me too. Amara blinked. Used you? He nodded. To hide transaction. Launder contracts under cyber defense investment. He set the glass down hard. If you have proof, I need to see it. Amara shook her head. Not here. I don't trust anyone in this building. If they know I talked to you. He interrupted, tone urgent now. Then let's go. My helicopter is on the rooftop. We'll go to my private office downtown. Only one man has access there, and he's loyal to me. Amara hesitated, glancing at the glass wall. The city looked endless and cruel. Julian, she said softly, if we go up there, there's no turning back. Julian held her gaze. Maybe that's the point. The elevator hummed upward, silent except for the whir of gears and Amara's heartbeat in her ear. Julian stood beside her, face calm but pale. He glanced at her reflection in the elevator doors. You've changed your name, your voice, your country. Why stay a maid? You could have vanished completely. Amara looked down. Because I needed to be close to the people who destroyed my family, to understand what kind of world could erase us so easily. The elevator chimed. The door slid open to reveal the rooftop helipad, glowing in the night fog. A silver helicopter waited, its blades idling softly, wind whipping through Amara's curl. Julian gestured for her to follow. Once we're in the air, you'll show me what you found. But Amara's instinct screamed. Something was wrong. The pilot wasn't one of the usual staff. His face was obscured by a headset and cap pulled low. Who's flying? She asked, frowning. Julian blinked. My pilot, Harris. He stopped mid-sentence. Harris was tall and broad. This man was thinner, his stance off balance. Amara's stomach dropped. Julian, she whispered, stepping closer. Get back inside. The pilot turned. A smirk split his face. Too late. He reached into his jacket. Amara reacted first, in one motion. She grabbed Julian's arm and dove behind the landing gear as a silenced pistol fired. The bullet sliced in the air where Julian's chest had been. Security breach on the roof. Amara shouted into the intercom near the stairwell. Static answered. The system was dead. Someone had cut communication. The fake pilot aimed again, shouting over the roar of blade. You should have stayed dead. Amara Van Ryn. Julian's eyes went wide. He knows your name. Amara gritted her teeth, crawling behind a fuel drum. That means he works for the same people who killed my parent. The shooter fired again. The bullet hit the fuel barrel. Sparks flew. Julian hissed. We can't stay here. Amara nodded toward a maintenance ladder, leading to a glass skylight below. There! They sprinted across the platform. Another shot grazed Amara's shoulder, burning through fabric. She stumbled, but Julian caught her before she fell. Keep going, he yelled, half dragging her toward the ladder. Behind them, the pilot shouted something in Dutch, words Amara hadn't heard since childhood. Voltui de Opdracht, Lot Nyman Levin. Finish the job. Leave no one alive. The voice wasn't just a mercenary. It was someone trained, government, or private black op. They slid down the ladder just as a helicopter's fuel tank exploded behind them, the shockwave hurling shards of glass and smoke across the night. They crashed through the skylight into the top floor penthouse suite. Alarms blared. Julian coughed through the dust. We're alive. For now. Amara met his eyes. The millionaire she'd once hated now stood beside her, covered in glass, breathing hard. And she realized, maybe for the first time, that he wasn't the enemy. He whispered, let's finish what your father started. Amara nodded. Then we go to the one place they won't expect. Where? She glanced toward the skyline, eyes narrowing. The archives under Crossline headquarters. Julian frowned. That building's off limit. Even I can't access some level. Then that's exactly where the truth is. The night over Manhattan was fractured by lightning. The Crossline headquarters, a glass and steel monolith rising 50 stories high, stood like a sentinel against a storm. Its mirrored walls reflected chaos, flashing police lights below, and the glow of its own corrupted soul above. Inside a nondescript black SUV, Julian Cross gripped the steering wheel hard enough for his knuckles to whiten. Beside him, Amara Van Ryn sat in silence, her wound hastily wrapped in a towel, her gaze fixed on the distant skyscraper. You're sure this is the only way? Julian asked, breaking the silence. Amara nodded. The files aren't in the main servers. My father said his final backup, his ghost folder, was buried deep inside Crossline's original data vault, level B4. Only 2 people had physical access. Julian glanced at her. Let me guess, my father and yours. Amara's lips tightened. Exactly. Julian exhaled slowly. You realize if we go in there, we'll trigger half the alarms in Manhattan. They'll send private security, maybe worse. She turned to him, eyes sharp through the dim light. Then let's make sure they don't know who they're chasing. He frowned. How do you plan to? She reached into her backpack and pulled out 2 maintenance badges, forged uniforms, and a small device that looked like a phone but pulsed with a faint blue glow. Julian blinked. You've been planning this for 6 years, she said simply. They entered through the underground maintenance dock at 2:17 a.m. The storm masked their approach. Rainwater poured off their hoods as they passed the biometric gate. Amara's device blinked twice, emitting a soft click. The system beeped green. Julian watched her work, half impressed, half terrified. That thing, what is it? A loop injector, she said, pressing against the scanner. It replays the last successful entry feed in the security system. To the cameras were just 2 janitors clocking in. Remind me never to underestimate a maid again, Julian muttered. Amara allowed herself the faintest smile. Good. Keep that energy. They moved through narrow corridors, humming with fluorescent light. Amara led the way, stopping occasionally to glance at schematics she'd memorized from stolen blueprint. She moved with precision, silent, calculated. Julian followed, watching the transformation. Gone was a timid hotel maid. What remained was a strategist, a survivor forged by loss. Left here, she whispered. They turned into a service stairwell. The smell of metal and ozone filled the air. Somewhere above them, thunder cracked, nature's warning drum. Julian's phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. Turn back. You're walking into a trap. M. He frowned. M. Amara's face paled. That's Marcus Lawton, the night manager. He must have intercepted chatter. Another message appeared. Security compromised. They know you're coming. Get out now. Before Julian could reply, the stairwell lights flickered and went out. Move. Amara hissed. They rushed down into the dark, guided only by the glow of her small device. But as they reached level B4, the heavy door at the bottom clicked shut with an ominous clang. Locked. Julian tried the handle. It's sealed from the other side. Amara crouched, pulling out a toolkit from her bag. Then we unseal it. Can you? Quiet. She cut in, her hands moving fast, splicing wires, overriding circuits. The lock hissed. 5 seconds. Behind them, footsteps echoed. Several pairs. Men descending fast. Julian's pulse pounded. They're coming. Amara didn't look up. 3 seconds. A flashlight beam sliced through the darkness above them. 2. The stairwell door creaked open, and the sound of boots thundered downward. Now! Amara yanked the panel free. The lock clicked. She shoved the door open. They slipped through and slammed it behind them, bolting it with steel rod. Bullets rattled against the other side almost instantly. Julian flinched. They're shooting! Jesus! Keep moving, she ordered, grabbing his hand and dragging him through a cold hallway lined with servers. Red emergency lights bathed the walls in a hellish glow. The data vault loomed ahead, a massive circular chamber sealed by a rotating titanium door. It looked more like a nuclear bunker than a server room. Julian stared at it. That thing requires dual retinal scans and an alpha key. I have the key, she said, pulling a small encrypted chip from her pocket. My father hid it in my necklace before everything. She stepped toward the retinal scanner, the red beam flashing across her eye. Identity confirmed. Hendrik Van Ryn, authorized legacy user. Julian's eyes widened. Your father programmed it to recognize you as him. The vault door groaned open, releasing a cold gust of air. Inside were rows of black terminals, each one glowing faintly blue. A single central console stood at the center like an altar. Amara approached it with reverence, her hands trembling as she inserted the chip. Lines of code flooded the screen. Project, Phoenix rewrite. Classified, access restricted. Julian frowned. Phoenix rewrite? Amara's face went pale. That's not what I expected. What is it? She scrolled faster, eyes widening with every line. My father wasn't just protecting data. He was rewriting AI warfare systems. But this, she froze. This says Julian Cross authorized phase 2. Julian blinked. I never. The monitor flashed red. Unauthorized access detected. Protocol cleanse initiated. The servers began to hum louder. Heat rose. Warning lights flared. What's happening? Julian demanded. Amara's fingers flew over the key. It's purging the drive. Someone triggered a failsafe remotely. Julian grabbed her arm. Can you stop it? Maybe, but I need time. Footsteps thundered behind them again. The locked stairwell hadn't held. Armed guards stormed in, dressed in black tactical gear, bearing the Crossline private security insignia. But Julian's stomach dropped. These weren't his men. The leader stepped forward, removing his mask. Hello, Mr. passed across. Julian froze. Derek. It was Derek Shaw, his former CFO, the man who resigned 2 years ago after an internal audit dispute. Funny seeing you here, Derek said, his voice calm but venomous. Still cleaning up your father's mess. I see. Unfortunately for you, this data belongs to us now. Amara glared. You killed my father. Derek smiled thinly. Your father was naive. He thought technology could be moral, but war pays better. He raised his gun. Step away from the console. Julian stepped in front of Amara. You'll have to go through me. Gladly, Derek said, cocking the hammer. A gunshot rang out, but it wasn't Derek's weapon. He stumbled forward, eyes wide, as a crimson bloom spread across his chest. Behind him, Marcus Lawton lowered his smoking pistol. I told you not to come here, Marcus growled. Julian exhaled in shock. Marcus, you saved us. Don't thank me yet, Marcus said, glancing at the console. That purge is spreading. You got maybe 90 seconds before the entire vault melts down. Amara's fingers flew across the keyboard. I can't stop it, but I can transfer a part of it to an offline drive, just enough to expose them. Julian knelt beside her. Tell me what to do. She pointed to a glowing cable. Hold that steady. When I say pull, you pull. The air filled with the whine of overloading circuit. Sparks burst overhead. The smell of burning metal grew thick. Now, she shouted. He yanked the cable free. The screen went dark, then blinked back on, displaying a small green message. Download successful. 3.1% data retrieved. Amara collapsed back, coughing. That's all I could save. It's enough, Julian said. Enough to destroy them. Marcus glanced at his watch. We need to move before this place turns into a furnace. They fled the vault, alarms shrieking. Behind them, the servers erupted in flames. Billions of dollars in secrets reduced to molten ruin. The three of them burst into the rain-soaked rooftop, smoke curling into the night. Julian looked back one. All of that my father's empire. Amara touched his arm. It was never yours to begin with. Now, maybe you can rebuild it the right way. Julian turned to her, soot-streaked, bloodied, eyes fierce even exhaustion, and something changed in his gaze. It wasn't pity. It was respect. We're not done yet, he said. We still have to tell the world. Amara nodded. Then we tell them everything. About Crossline, about Project Phoenix, about my father. She reached into her bag, holding up the small drive. The truth survived, Julian. Now it's time to set free. Thunder rolled overhead, echoing like the voice of justice itself. Upload it, Julian said, his voice cutting to the hum of rain and static. They stood in a derelict safe house on the outskirts of the city, walls lined with dusty monitors, wires like tangled veins. Lightning flashed through the cracked window as Amara Van Ryn inserted the encrypted drive into a terminal. On the largest screen, the Crossline logo pulsed like a dying heart. Amara typed furious, once I upload this, every government server, every financial watchdog, and every major news network will have it. There's no going back. Julian didn't hesitate. Then don't look back. The progress bar crawled forward. 10%, 23%, 47%. Outside, thunder rolled like an omen. Marcus paced near the doorway, pistol holster but ready. We've got 15 minutes before they triangulate our location. Crossline's private army doesn't forgive and forget. Amara didn't look up. Then let's make sure they don't have anything left to protect. Julian's phone buzzed. An encrypted message from unknown. You can't run from blood, Julian. The truth is already inside you. His hand trembled slightly. It's him. Amara looked over. Who? Julian's throat went dry. My father. Richard Cross had been declared dead 8 months ago. A private jet crashed off the coast of Belize. His funeral had been held. His company transferred to a board of trustees, and his empire stabilized under Julian's control. But deep down, Julian had always known. His father was too meticulous, too paranoid to die that quietly. Now, the confirmation was here. He's alive, Julian whispered, staring at the screen. He's been pulling the strings this whole time. Derek, the security team, all of it. He's testing me. Amara froze. Testing you. Julian looked up at her, his eyes hollow. He once told me a true heir isn't someone who inherits the crown. It's someone who can survive wearing it. Lightning illuminated the room, revealing something Amara hadn't noticed before. A small red light blinking in the far corner. A camera. Her pulse spiked. Julian, before she could finish, the monitors flickered. The Crossline logo vanished, replaced by a live video feed. And there he was, Richard Cross, older, colder, alive, sitting in a dark office, smoke curling from a cigar between his fingers. Hello, son. Julian took a step forward, his jaw tightening. You're supposed to be dead. Death, Richard said, exhaling smoke, is an inconvenience for men without power. You've disappointed me, Julian. Julian's fists clenched. You ruined lives. You destroyed her father's legacy. Richard's gaze shifted toward Amara. Ah, the maid. No, forgive me, the multilingual daughter of Hendrik Van Ryn. You've inherited more than your father's brilliant, Miss Van Ryn. Unfortunately, you've also inherited his misplaced morality. Amara's jaw tightened, and you've inherited your greed. A flicker of a amusement crossed Richard's face. You think leaking 3% of data archive will undo an empire built on decades of control? My dear, corruption doesn't fear exposure. It feeds on it. Julian stepped closer to the screen. You can't win this time. The people will see what you did. Richard smiled faintly. People only see what I want them to. But I must admit, watching you rebel, it's been entertaining. The feed glitched, and suddenly, the lights in the safe house went out. Marcus cursed. EMP surged. He's cutting the power. Amara ripped the drive from the terminal. The upload froze at 73%. We need another way. Julian grabbed a flashlight. There's one. He pointed toward the window, the stormlit skyline in the distance, and at its center, Crossline Tower glowing defiantly. The main broadcast core, Julian said. It auto-links to global media grids every hour. If we upload from there, it'll go everywhere. Unstoppable. Amara stared at him. That building surrounded by security. Julian's voice was steady. Then we walked through them. They reached the tower before dawn. Sirens wailed in the distance as rain fell in silver sheet, turning the streets into mirrors. The glass facade of Crossline shimmered like a cathedral built for greed. Julian led the way, his soaked shirt clinging to his frame, his determination unyielding. Marcus followed, scanning corners. Amara moved behind them, clutching the drive like it was the last piece of her soul. They slipped through a service entrance, past stunned guards who barely had time to react before Marcus' tranquilizer rounds dropped them cold. Elevators dead, Marcus said. Power grid cycle. Julian looked at the stairwell. 50 floors spiraling upward. Then we climb. By floor 20, their legs burned. By floor 40, the air grew heavy. Rainwater trickled down the window, streaking the city in reflections of neon and sin. At floor 50, they burst into the broadcast control room, a gleaming chamber of screens and cables overlooking the entire city. Julian turned to Amara. Plug it in. She inserted the drive into the main server. The system booted, blue light flooding the room. A soft voice echoed from the speakers. Welcome back, Mr. Cross. Amara froze. He's in the system. Julian slammed his hand on the console. Override code Sigma 4. The lights dimmed, and suddenly Richard's face filled every screen. Live feed again, his expression colder than ice. You truly don't understand, do you, son? He said softly. This company isn't just software. It's the foundation of global defense. Project Phoenix was meant to protect humanity from itself. Amara stepped forward. You turn protection into domination. Richard's eyes narrowed. You think morality feeds nations? Your father's ethics starved half his project. I finished what he was too weak to start. Julian slammed his fist down. You murdered him. Richard didn't flinch. I preserved progress. Something inside Julian snapped. Then progressing tonight. He yanked open a side panel, exposing the core cable. Amara connected directly to the public grid. She hesitated. If we cross-link it manually, it'll fry the system. And you, Julian met her eyes, calm amid chaos. Then it ends with me. Amara's voice broke. Julian, no. But he'd already begun. The room filled with electric hum. Screens flickering violently. Sparks erupted. The storm outside grew wilder, wind howling against glass. Tell them the truth, Julian said, voice strained. Tell them what we did and what we became. Amara's tears blurred her vision as she finished the sequence. The system surged. A white burst of light flooded the room. The Crossline network screamed to life. And across the world, from New York to London to Cape Town, millions of screens flickered on, displaying classified files, corrupt deals, covert assassinations, and the signature of one man, Richard Cross. Hours later, the storm had passed. Helicopters circled the tower as news anchors shouted over breaking headlines. Crossline systems exposed. Global outcry over corporate espionage. Julian Cross confirmed dead in system overload. In the chaos below, Amara sat wrapped in a blanket, watching emergency crews swarm the wreckage. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, but burning with something fierce. A hand touched her shoulder. Marcus stood behind her. You did it. She shook her head slowly. We did. He glanced upward, toward the tower's shattered top floor. He went out like a soldier. No, she whispered. He went out like a man who finally saw the truth. A reporter's voice nearby caught her attention. Authorities are investigating the involvement of a mysterious whistleblower known as the Maid. Reports suggest she was once an employee at a luxury hotel, fluent in over 6 languages. Amara smiled faintly. Let them wonder. Marcus looked at her. What will you do now? She stood, wind sweeping her hair across her face as she looked toward the sunrise breaking over the skyline. I'm going home, she said softly, to Amsterdam, to rebuild what they destroyed. And after that, she turned, her expression calm but resolute. After that, maybe I'll buy the hotel. Marcus laughed under his breath. You're serious? She looked toward the rising sun. I was always serious. They just never listened. She started walking, through the flashing lights, through the aftermath, through the whispers of a world that finally knew her name. And for the first time in years, Amara Van Ryn didn't didn't feel small. She didn't feel invisible. She felt unstoppable. In a glass office overlooking the canals of Amsterdam, a new sign shimmered in gold. Van Ryn Institute for Ethical Technology. Inside, journalists gathered for a press conference. Cameras flashed as Amara stepped to the podium, dressed in a sleek white suit. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady. "1 year ago, a man gave his life to expose the truth. Today, we honor that truth by ensuring technology serves people, not power." She paused, glancing toward a framed photograph on the wall. Julian Cross, smiling beside her, taken just days before the fall. Amara's voice softened. "He once told me that surviving isn't enough. You have to live in a way that makes your survival mean something." She looked up, eyes blazing with conviction. "So that's what I intend to do." The audience erupted in applause. Outside, the world turned cleansed, scarred but still breathing. And somewhere beyond the echoes of that applause, a single phrase whispered to the winds of change. The maid who spoke Dutch became the woman who spoke truth.